So I was like, okay, let's see what happens if you get a bunch of people together and start doing this. Our goal is to constantly work, find more people to work, and just push the money out. What's enabling is you have more leaders. My experience has been the people who invent their roles are the ones who, kind of do best. I also like the DePIN movement. They like kind of like the decentralized like infrastructure stuff.
Welcome to episode 7 of Into the Forest with Pine. Today I have Dean. Let's start off by talking about kind of what you do and what you're working on with Dean's List DAO.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jack. So I like playing with governance. I'm really interested in decentralized communities. I got into blockchain crypto around 2016 as an investor. Got my first Bitcoin back then. And then really fell in love with the space, started working at different startups. And when I was at Ethereum Classic, I was working as developer relations. So I got to really see some like hardcore decentralization. It's like trying to organize the entire ecosystem between, developers, miners, exchanges, wallets. Like it was a really good masterclass in how to organize all of these people who, don't work for the same, company.
Yeah.
And then after that, I got to experience a decentralized community on Ethereum called Whale, where at the same time, Top Shot was like really like the thing to have, the Flow NFT.
Yeah.
And there was a game connected to it that you could only play the game if you were also a Whale member. This is, 2019. Like Solana was like super new at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, and tried that out. Loved the experience, and I had also just discovered Solana. So I was like, okay, we gotta bring this experience over. But yeah, that's kind of like what I do. I play around with decentralized communities, try to figure out how you get people aligned using these incentives.
Yeah, definitely. I guess going into it, kind of like what inspired you to make like Dean's List and like kind of like and what kind of goal are you serving with it and like what are you trying to complete by like running Dean's List?
Yeah, that's a great question, and this is something I stumbled into during Grape. So Grape was the first thing that I started doing on Solana, which started out as a verification bot. That
Yeah, I
the
think I've seen it around.
analogy on Ethereum is collab land. And during that exploration, we started doing feedback like sessions along with other partner projects, Squads, Mean Finance, Strata. There were a few of them. And I found that we were producing a lot of value, um, but there wasn't like a compensation model. And then I started to see that like within all of these different discords and communities, and it might have been like during bull run season that this is a phenomenon where a lot of people become community members. They start doing a lot of stuff for free, writing content, making memes. Like people are just, like super fans. And these super fans really emerge quickly in these communities versus, being able to see a super fan of, the Web2 brands that we know. Like, someone who's a super fan of Apple only stands out if they have like a very large following and a big blog. But within these startups, these niche blockchain ones, they stand out more. And there was no incentive for that. So I was like, okay, let's see what happens if you get a bunch of people together and start doing this. And it took off. People enjoyed doing it, and there was value for projects. So we started doing it more and more and more. And at the same time, Balaji came out with the network state, which is this concept that you can have nations without, borders. So really, the end goal is to really explore this because as a decentralized community, we have a product which now generates revenue. And the idea is to never really have a treasury, but to constantly increase the amount we're all making doing this work together, and see where this takes us. So, right now, I think the hard parts of trying to find how you make money together as a group of people that have never met and don't have a boss, how that works, and it's working. So the next thing is like, okay, how can we bring this to our in real life surroundings, in our environment, right? So the next goal is to start making more in real life events, eventually embassies, and some other ideas from there.
So you started off saying that you guys don't have a treasury. Could you kind of dive deeper into that decision? Because I think that's a decision that a lot of people have not made and aren't even thinking about.
Yeah, so inevitably you have a temporary treasury, right? Money comes in and it sits there. And at the same time, what we do is we have a taxation on all of our work. So any work we bring in to the community, we also tax. In other words, we keep some of that into our treasury temporarily. The idea, though, is we don't want to be managing funds. Like, it becomes really difficult when you start thinking about, okay, who runs the treasury? And then, DeFi, and okay, who's like, the level of trust you need there, not only in the person, but in competence, is very high. So instead of trying to figure that out, because then it's like, okay, well, what are you doing with the money? And then you have to start thinking about things that get you into security issues, like are you doing dividends and stuff like that? Forget that. Our goal is to constantly work, find more people to work, and just push the money out. And what we do with the taxes is we work on things that grow the whole. So it's like we need somebody to work on marketing. We need someone to work on analytics. We need to have a dashboard. We need to develop new tools. That's how we continuously push money out. So we have a treasury. Like right now, collectively, we probably have something like 30K. And that's the highest we've ever had. But the goal is for it to constantly go out. So if you look at our Realms proposals right now, Realms is the platform we use for DAOing. It's the Solana SPL governance DAO platform. We have actively, I think, about 8K worth of proposals. One of them's for funding development. We have a few development initiatives. One of them is to send somebody to Breakpoint, the Solana conference in Amsterdam. We have a marketing initiative. And then our operations budget, which is to take care of like kind of the people who are doing these like smaller initiatives across the Discord and Twitter and stuff like that.
That makes sense. So I guess working with DAOs and like decentralized systems are like seems to be a lot more complex than working with like a centralized system. And it seems like you have a lot of experience with this, but like kind of what have you learned about working in and with decentralized systems, and how does it like compare to centralized systems, if you have some comparison to compare it against?
Yeah, it's tough. Like the what's enabling is you have more leaders. That's what this allows you to do. And at the same time, people are not used to being part of an organization and also being a leader within this organization, right? Like usually somebody is the leader of an organization, and like when you're new to it, you're supposed to follow a certain pathway to go up a hierarchy. Within the decentralized communities, my experience has been the people who invent their roles are the ones who kind of do best. That would be the biggest difference, is that there's a lot of autonomy, and that's a double-edged sword. I think it's a dynamic we're not really used to.
Yeah, it seems like people have to take ownership of what they're doing much more when you're decentralized, and kind of think of what you need to do to be useful.
I mean, you're part of Metrics DAO as well, right?
Yeah.
Do you find that like that experience is how do you see that experience being different than your Web 2?
Well, I don't I don't have any Web 2 experience. So, but I definitely think that the people in the DAO who know, like, echoing what you said, who like take leadership, do what they think is useful for the DAO and provide value, are the people who kind of are best there and kind of know how to provide value without being told how to do it. I guess moving on to kind of your decision of going on or picking to use Solana, kind of why did you choose Solana, and what do you think the advantages of the Solana ecosystem over other blockchains?
Yeah, so at the time, for me, the decision is very binary. It was either Ethereum or Solana. A lot of what I brought to Solana was from Ethereum. I was copying it basically. Um, and the experience at the time, there was no Polygon, the optimism, none of that. It was a lot faster, like user friendly, it felt, and a lot cheaper. And, when you think about like non-financial transactions, it's really hard to rationalize paying $5 to vote on. Yeah, you get where I'm going with this. So I think everything that's non-financial has to be on a chain that has really cheap transaction costs. The speed, it also helps. But that was the primary decision. And even today, there's things that we do within our DAO that would bankrupt us to try to do them on Ethereum. There's more and more other chains that are popping up. But at this point, I'm so in love with SPL governance, which is the DAOing program on Solana, that, there would have to be something, analogous on one of these other chains for me to consider leaving.
Yeah.
Some examples of things we're doing. One of the things is, as a network state, we have this concept of a business visa. You just got a business visa.
Yeah.
You'll be seeing now that we're going to be issuing a temporary compressed NFT. So the idea is that every single person that gets a business visa gets this NFT, and it automatically has in it an expiration date. That way, if you don't renew, it'll leave your wallet. It's soul bound. So you can't transfer it, and it will expire. It'll change its status to expired if it's not renewed. And we can also update things like, your experience, what else you've done. All of those are transaction costs, right? And issuing NFTs is super cheap because it's compressed NFTs. So that's one of the things that we're doing that would be cost prohibitive somewhere else. And that's really the beauty, is that you can continuously like experiment without thinking about how it's going to affect your treasury, right? So even like what's beautiful is this isn't even just a blockchain comparison. It's a blockchain versus Web 2 comparison. To do something analogous, we would have to be using so many different tools, where we'd be, I don't even know what the credit card bill would be for us to have all of these tools, right? Like even if you want to use something simple like SurveyMonkey just to poll things, you're going to need to have, some sort of pro account. Here we're using, our own DAOing instance, and all of the cost goes on to the individual user, and these are fractions of a cent. Another thing we did recently was our airdrop. We used token options. So I don't know how aware you are of how we did our airdrop. What we did was we used something called dual finance, and there's an integration with Realms.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to airdrop options to people that we targeted. You then have the right to exercise that option. We would put the exercise cost at $0.0000001. That way it's negligible for you but you still had to take action to get those tokens, right? And there was an expiration date. The options would expire after a week. So what that allowed us to do was airdrop, and if someone was inactive, after it expires, we then pulled back all the tokens that were these worthless options. It's the only way I know of where you could airdrop to see if the other person's active, and if they're not, hey, just claw it back. You can't just, there's so many different transactions for each of these instances. It would be cost prohibitive anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I see what's going on with Drip House and other things like that on Solana, where it's like doing things like that will be completely cost prohibitive if you're trying to do it on Ethereum or even on layer twos. Kind of going back to like DAO, like working for a DAO and like working DAOs, like I've been doing a working DAO at Metrics DAO for like a while now, and I've been getting a lot of work from different DAOs, and I think that like this might be the future of work. So I kind of, since you're running a work DAO, I kind of wanted to see what your vision for the future of this kind of work is, and like where do you think it's going?
Yeah, I think that it's going to really enable the gig economy where, you're going to be able to spontaneously join a team for a duration, for like, let's say 2 months to do a project. It could be for 2 hours, it could be 2 months. You can decide to do something for years, right? But you'll be able to rapidly be part of different teams in different kinds of industries, with people you've never met. You'll be able to carry your reputation with you. So I think it'll be a much better hiring process. I think it'll be a better efficiency, like finding the right people for the right job process. As far as the way we do work, I think there's going to be things like work contracts where, let's say we were doing analytics together, right? You're usually building dashboards on like Flipside or something.
Yeah, usually.
Okay, so you're going to need some sort of salesman for that product. And let's say that you're the product manager, right? So you and the salesman are going to be the two most important people in this product contract. And you'll decide, okay, we're going to go and find retail companies. We're going to charge them $5,000 to do an analysis of their e-commerce store. You say, look, since I am the product manager and I'm doing most of the analytics, I want 30% of the sale, of whatever money comes in. Awesome. And me as the salesman, I want 10%. Great. This can go into a contract. So then we can have this sitting there on chain, and we can advertise. We need a designer. The designer will get 10%. And you fill in all of that contract, that percentage. And then the moment we make a sale, we can set up streaming vesting agreements. We all know, we've already seen the contract. We all know exactly how much we're going to get paid. And there can even be reputation connected to this. Oh, you know what? I see that Jack's done this a lot. Everybody that's worked with him has said the guy's always completing, always respectable, whereas that, this Dean guy, he has this one really bad review over here. I don't know, like he flaked out. He went to the, to the Bahamas instead of completing his work. But that can't possibly happen in a non-Web3 environment. Like somebody has to be the boss. The money has to go into somebody's account. It can't just simultaneously be split up. Somebody has to sign an agreement. There has to be a jurisdiction. So I think that, there's going to be really cool things that are just not possible in the way we think about it. And then think about how that opens up credit, right? Like you'll be able to show all of these different jobs you're doing. You're going to have a revenue stream. You can, take that revenue stream and then lend it out and, get some leverage on it. And like, there's just some crazy things you can do, with your time after that. And you'll have ultimate flexibility. It won't be, this is your 9 to 5. It'll be like, I want to go and make some money, or, hey, I don't need any money right now. I'm going to go and just do this.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. And I think there's kind of endless possibilities for like how it could be laid out.
Like right now, if you want to find a designer to join you, right, you are basically starting a company when you're doing that, right? Like it's not really a partnership because you are, hey, I want to do analytics. You're going to tell the designer what they're going to be doing. You're probably going to be having to put them on payroll of some sort. Like, what kind of agreement are you going to have? Okay, sure. Maybe you get a designer on Upwork. And then you're going to have to then also get a marketer on Upwork and also an engineer on Upwork, right? Like that's the closest analogy you can do. And it's so clunky. Whereas, I think there's going to be these work contracts that you'll be able to be part of different pods. And, you'll say, look, I want 30%. There'll be somebody else that says, hey, I only want 10. But I'm going to be like, whoa, the Jack premium, I'm going to go work with Jack. Sure, he takes 30%, but he can go, I can sell that a lot easier than I can sell this other guy who's only taking 5%.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess zooming out to looking at crypto as a whole, what kind of seems like you've been on the cutting edge of things for a while now. So kind of what is exciting you right now and what things are like, I guess other than the thing you're working on yourself, like what trends do you see? I don't know, different things that kind of have you excited.
Yeah, it's tough for me to zoom outside of the non-financial. Like that I'm just excited about the non-financial layer of things. I think that's just such an unexplored space. And there's a lot of like I think token 2022, this new standard on Solana is going to be a game changer because all of a sudden, just tokens alone allows us to do so many new things. But when you can now program different logic directly into the token, where you say, look, the every time it's sent, there's going to be a royalty imposed. Just that layer alone puts a whole new dynamic. So, I just nerd out on all the non-financial things. There's so much to play with on different incentives. I don't really like. I'm not super into any of the AI stuff right now. It's great to use as a tool, but anything to do with blockchain, I think that's I'm not interested in it. I also like the DePIN movement. They like kind of like the decentralized like infrastructure stuff, like Helium, Hive Mapper. I think that those are going to be really critical into these kind of like DAOs and network states. Like I think they go hand in hand. I was just talking to Noah Prince, who's one of the engineers at Helium, and I think that is like that's the stuff that I think I'm most interested in outside of DAOs.
Well, I think this is a great way to wrap things up. Thank you for coming on to Into the Forest with Pine.
Thank you for having me, Jack.